All right, y'all. Hey, what's up, good people? I'm QC. Welcome to this Talkin and Grubbin live stream. I know all of y'all just got finished watching the first two parts of The Last Dance, the documentary about the Chicago Bulls. And here tonight, I have another YouTuber. He's also a diehard Bulls fan, and he's one of the best basketball content creators on YouTube. Y'all gotta subscribe to his channel. I got the link to his channel in the description box. Too Raw for TV. Thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm doing pretty good, man. I can't complain. Like everybody else, we're just contending with what's going on with this craziness. But we had a little respite from that today with the much anticipated documentary on ESPN today.
Right. So, how's everything going with the quarantine?
I mean, me personally, it's okay. I mean, for me, from a personal standpoint, hopefully, I haven't been affected. I say hopefully because I've read that a lot of people are asymptomatic carriers.
Yeah.
So hopefully I haven't acquired it. I hope that nobody that's listening and you yourself, I hope nobody acquires this virus. But as far as the quarantine process itself, it's starting to get a little, I guess, how can I say this? Like it's starting to get a little antsy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
But at the same time, I know it's for a bigger cause other than myself. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Yeah. We are. A lot of us. So some of us, we definitely get a little antsy. We ready to get back to some of the things we do best.
Yeah.
But we just gotta ride this. We just gotta ride this thing out till they say the quarantine order is lifted. We can just go back to our daily lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully that's sooner rather than later. You know what I'm saying?
I definitely agree. But man, we all just got done watching this documentary, The Last Dance on the 97-98 Chicago Bulls season, which culminated to their sixth and final championship. And we definitely found out some things. There are some things we already knew, but the first two parts, focus a lot on Jerry Krause. Some ways I felt for, but some ways I didn't feel for him. Like with how he handled the whole thing with Phil Jackson. Like, come on, this man gave you, at the time, 5 championships in daggone near a decade, and you didn't give him at least a nice deal. Because to me, when they said he gave Phil Jackson that 1-year deal the last season, it's like he was trying to pacify Phil instead of like rewarding Phil. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's crazy too, man, because Jerry Krause was, if I'm not mistaken, Jerry Krause was the one that brought Phil Jackson into the organization.
Right.
And, Jerry Krause and Phil initially had a very good relationship. Phil eventually replaced Doug Collins as head coach, I think, at the start of the 89-90 season.
Right.
I always remember, like, Jerry Krause has always been portrayed as the enemy. He's always been portrayed as the guy that pretty much broke up the dynasty. And most Bulls fans, and most Bulls fans hold him in contempt, even in passing, because he passed away a couple years ago.
Right.
The Bulls fans still hold it against him. I mean, I have some sympathy for Jerry Krause, and you also cannot question his ability to build a team. He did help to create a championship team. He made some smart moves, but one thing that they did say that's true is that Jerry Krause couldn't step out of his own way. Jerry Krause had this Napoleon complex. He had this inferiority complex, and it often got in the way of his dealings with other people with the Bulls organization.
Oh, most definitely. You know, if Jerry Krause would have just got out of his own way and just took a step back and just watched everything develop, I think, the relationship between him, Phil, Michael, Scotty, and the rest of the team would have been a whole lot better.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that ultimately, from what I remember reading before about the situation and this documentary putting more light on it. Now, this is a little bit personal opinion from what I read. I think that Jerry Krause started growing resentful of the credit that Phil Jackson got for helping to lead the Bulls to the dynasties. When you consider that he brought Phil Jackson on, he didn't like the fact that Phil was getting all this credit, but he wasn't getting any. But that's just how it is. Most general managers in the NBA don't get all that much credit. I mean, there are exceptions. Jerry West for one, and a guy like maybe Pat Riley, but they also were former players.
Or Theo Epstein.
Yeah. But they're usually like exceptions. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time, the coaches or the players, they tend to get more, praise just because they're more, the public knows them more, but Jerry Krause just couldn't, I don't know, he just had this ego issue, a real big ego.
Oh yeah, definitely. When he said that quote, organizations win championships, not players, that told me a lot about him. And I definitely think he resented Phil, getting all the credit because he brought him on as the head coach. And also he built the team, even though, he got there after they had drafted Michael Jordan the previous year, but he got the Scottie Pippens, the Horace Grants, the Bill Cartwrights, the Steve Kerrs, Dennis Rodman, Ron Harper, Tony Kukocs of the world to come on.
Yeah. He was definitely responsible for bringing in that talent, and I think one of the biggest trades that he, acquisitions, not trades. Well, actually, trade is because they traded Will Purdue. Is when they acquired Dennis Rodman. Without Dennis Rodman, those Bulls wouldn't have won those last 3 titles. So,
right.
Jerry Krause, right? So Jerry Krause was a great general manager, but he was just so egotistical, and he also sometimes exaggerated his achievements. I remember him saying that he was the one that discovered Earl the Pearl Monroe because he used to be a scout before he became an executive.
True.
Yeah. And most people said that that's not exactly true. He didn't discover Earl the Pearl Monroe, but that's just how Jerry Krause was. He just had an ego, and that's not going to work on a team where you got the guy that's considered the greatest player of all time, a guy that's considered one of the greatest defensive players of all time, the greatest rebounder of all time, and a guy that's considered one of the, if not the greatest, one of the greatest NBA coaches of all time. I mean, you're not going to get all the credit. You're not going to get a lot of credit, especially if you're in the front office.
Definitely. But in some ways, I felt for him with, Michael Jordan because, the first part definitely showed how Michael Jordan just treated Jerry Krause like crap. When they were doing the ring ceremony, starting in '97, he said, asked Jerry, "Do you want to shoot some layups? We gotta lower the rim." And also, this was on a previous documentary about the Bulls. Scottie Pippen shared a story about the Bulls coming off of some road game, and they were on the bus, and Michael Jordan was like, Jerry, there's a lot of lakes out here. You can go fishing, but if you don't catch none, you can just eat the bait. I said, now that's cold. That was cold.
I remember in the book from Sam Smith, who was featured on this documentary, right. Chicago Tribune writer, I think he was, for 30 years. He had a book that came out in the early '90s called the Jordan Rules. I remember him saying that a lot of Bulls players' nickname for Jerry Krause was Crumbs. Because they said that he's like eating donuts, and he used to always have like the powdered residue all over his shirt or on his lapel, or he had like little
uh,
donut crumbs. Yeah, so he used to always say things to deflate his ego.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. But yeah, Michael definitely could have been a little nicer to Jerry Krause, but
yeah,
it did do a good job on how, why the relationship between Michael and Jerry Krause soured. Starting back in his second year when Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf put Jordan on a minutes restriction coming back from that calf injury, having him play, 7 minutes, 14 minutes per game. Excuse me. And also, Jerry Krause was literally about to come down to the bench where with Stan Auerbach to basically, get at him for if he put Jordan back in the game against Indiana in the final seconds. And also another thing that soured their relationship is when he traded away Charles Oakley for Bill Cartwright, because Charles Oakley was Michael Jordan's boy and he was his protector. Every time, say the Pistons would beat up on him, Oakley was there to defend him and protect him. So, that I think the Oakley trade soured their relationship more than the putting them back in the game against Indiana, in my opinion.
yeah. About the foot injury year, 86, 85, 86. I thought that, I understand Michael being competitive. It was one thing. I kind of initially would have sided with management because with that type of foot injury, for they're saying, because there's not a lot of blood supply down there, you don't want to risk re-injury because it could be career threatening. So I kind of understand why they were being very conservative with his minutes initially, but
Right.
but as he revealed to them that he had actually been playing, basically scrimmaging, for like a month before they even, knew that he was doing it. I don't understand why they kept him at 14 minutes a game as you were getting closer to the playoff. Like, that wouldn't make sense to me. Like, at that point, I mean, I can understand maybe like limiting him to like 25 minutes or something like
Right.
that. But I would think it would be more like 20 minutes and then 25 minutes a game. And then as you get to the playoffs, or if you agree to make the playoffs, maybe about 30 or something like that. But I don't understand why it got to the point where if you put him back in the game, stand all back, we're going to fire you. For
Yeah.
14 seconds, that's more like you just trying to make a point.
Oh, most definitely. They were definitely trying to make a point. Now, yeah, okay, I can see what Reinsdorf and Krause was saying, because Michael was just coming off of a horrible, calf injury, and they didn't want to ruin his career. But come on, your team is in the middle of a playoff push. You could at least give Jordan, like you said, at least 20 minutes each game. And if as the season is starting to wind down, you get to the playoffs, just playing more. They definitely were trying to get a higher draft pick. They weren't trying to win that year. They
No.
wanted to make sure that they got the highest pick possible in the lottery.
Yeah. Yeah. They were playing business odds and shit, excuse me, and stuff like that then.
It's
They
okay.
weren't. Yeah, I know, too off TV. But no, but
Say what you feel.
yeah, but they definitely was trying to be more. They were coming at it as businessmen more so than as from a basketball standpoint that year. You know what I'm saying? And as Jordan said, that kind of pretty much started his resentment and his mistrust of management from that point went on. And then you talked about the Charles Oakley trade. I know Charles I know maybe Michael, in hindsight now, doesn't feel the same way about that trade as he did then, but I
Yeah,
know that he hated that trade at the time. He hated it because, like you
definitely.
said, that was his friend and that was his enforcer. And I remember reading about, like, initially when Bill Cartwright got there. Bill Cartwright, had a history of injuries with the New York Knicks. So Michael's nickname for Bill Cartwright was Medical Bill. And yeah, he's called Medical Bill. And in scrimmages and practices, Michael would throw these really hard to handle passes at Bill Cartwright because Bill Cartwright had this reputation for having small hands to make him look bad. But Bill Cartwright corrected him. Like he came up to Michael and told him in so many words, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. And Michael pretty much ended up respecting Bill Cartwright, and then they actually started winning titles. So now, of course, Michael's going to tell you now that was probably the best move. That was the best move for the team, but he still resented at the time them trading Charles Oakley.
Most definitely, definitely. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also, in my opinion, for Jerry Krause and Phil and all the players having issues was really Jerry Reinsdorf's fault. In my opinion, as I was watching the first two parts, I always thought to myself, now I know Jerry Reinsdorf is not a meddling owner, but when you running, whether it's a team or any type of business, if you see some issues going on with amongst employees, you got to step in to see what's going on to get both parties together to talk things out to see if y'all can at least come to some common ground, or a mutual understanding. And I always wondered, why did he do that with Jerry Krause and Phil? Why he did not get them, why they couldn't set up a meeting wherever, his house or the team, his office, so they could just talk to each other, hash things out, to clear the air. Because that's what any, good owner businessman does.
Right. It makes me suspect now. Now I don't know. This could be totally wrong, but it makes me suspect that Jerry Reinsdorf may have been sort of, how can I say this? Like basically like kind of telling each party what they wanted to hear. Like and maybe kind of was playing, not playing both sides because Krause was in management like Reinsdorf, although Krause worked for Reinsdorf. But it kind of made me think that maybe if Phil went to Reinsdorf and complained about Krause, maybe he would kind of be like, look, you know how Jerry is, blah, 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 you're safe. If anything push come to shove, we're not going to get rid of you, blah, blah, blah. Then Krause might go to Reinsdorf, look, you brought him in here, so he's partly your fault, but you got to deal with him, blah, 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 blah. We're going to have, one day this is going to be over. But in the meantime, you got to deal with him. But ultimately, we're going to get Tim Floyd in, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if Reinsdorf was doing like that, but it doesn't make sense any other way, because if I'm Reinsdorf, I would want to keep this thing going.
Right.
I wouldn't want to end this. I strongly believe that the Bulls could have won at least one more championship in '99 against the Spurs. I mean, my opinion. So I don't know why Reinsdorf wasn't more active in trying to be peacemaker between Phil Jackson and Krause, because that would have stopped the domino effect, in my opinion. If Krause had vowed to give Phil at least one more year, Michael would have stayed, Scotty would have stayed, Dennis Rodman would have stayed, and the Bulls would have stayed together for one more year. But that didn't happen.
Right, or at least most of those players would have stayed together. I disagree. For some reason, I don't think they would have won in '99.
You
against
know?
the Spurs, in my opinion. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I ain't saying they would get like annihilated in 5 like the Knicks did. I think it would be at least a 6 or 7 game series because the Bulls in '98 when they won, that last title, they were one of the oldest teams, if not the oldest team in the NBA. Michael was getting up there. Scotty's back issues were getting the best of him. As a matter of fact, Scotty out of spite decided to use the season to get back, to get back in shape and rehab instead of doing it over the summer like he should have. And also, excuse me, it's like they kind of won that 98 title on films. And when you do that stuff like that on films, most of the time you can't do that again. So I think the Bulls probably wouldn't beat the Spurs. And plus, Duncan was just so doggone strong so quickly. And, David Robinson was hungry for that elusive title. I don't think they get past the Spurs. That's my opinion. I know a lot of people, have given me grief on social media over saying that, but that's just my take.
Right. I mean, I can see definitely that would have been the most formidable front line the Chicago Bulls would have ever faced in the finals.
Right.
And Duncan was what, 20? How was Duncan then? 23?
He had to be no more than 22, 23. I know he was in his second year.
Right. He was like 23, 24. So he was like this was young. Right.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot he did do all 4 years.
Right. So he's about 24 or something like that. Yeah, this is the only reason why I think the Bulls could have beaten the Spurs. The Spurs did drop a game to the Knicks.
True.
And they didn't really have much outside of Sprewell and Houston scoring wise.
Right.
Right. So it's debatable. I do think that it would have been an ugly series. But what I mean by ugly, I think that the scoring would have been low.
Oh, of course.
It would have been terrible. I think Jordan and I think Jordan, Pippen, I think they would have shot horrible shooting percentages for their standards. And it's hard. It's hard. Maybe the Bulls could have eked it out. Maybe it being a 50-game season could benefit them because of their age. Maybe they're not as worn down. I don't know. But that's one of those fun little debates, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely agree that series would have been ugly because, matter of fact, I think in that 99 finals, I don't think either team scored 100 points in that game.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I remember a lot of 80-point games.
Right.
Like 86, 81, totally different era of basketball. Those games were not pretty. As a matter of fact, to add to your point, though, I remember there was a game early in the 97-98 season when the Bulls was playing the Spurs. Matter of fact, I think it was Tim Duncan's second game of his career, man. And the Bulls was hosting the Spurs. And the Bulls won that game, but the final score was something like, I want to say it was like 70, 79, 70 something. And I remember Jordan missed 26 shots that game. Right. So that's why I was saying I could see if the Bulls were to win that series, it would be an ugly series, just ugly, not pretty.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I say the Spurs will win, because that type of game really, favored the Spurs back then, because for a while the Spurs were playing that that boring, well, a lot of people say boring, that quote unquote ugly basketball. It was methodical, they grind you out, they weren't into scoring 100-something points,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know some people aren't fans of that type of basketball, but I loved it. Man. I love watching those teams, the Pistons, the mid 2000 Pistons teams. I like
Yeah,
the Knicks teams of that era, the Miami Heat teams of the late '90s with Mourning and Tim Hardaway and Vashawn Leonard and Kurt Thomas when he was there. Yeah, I used to like those teams, man. That type of basketball, half court, grind them out. Because I always felt like those type of games, you got to see who the really true great players are. Like one of the things about this high paced basketball today, in my opinion at least, is it when you have these inflated scores, it makes guys appear to be better than what they really are.
true.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think there's some guys today that are averaging 25 points a game that back in the late 90s, I could easily see these guys only putting up 15 a game just because of the era, just because of the way the game was played, and because of the pace and the way that defenses weren't handcuffed back then. So these guys really had to be great scorers. Like they had to have go-to moves, you know what I'm saying, in order and go into their bag of tricks to really make critical buckets. Today, it's too easy for these guys to score, with the way that, especially for shooters. So it's like, to me, I'm not trying to knock the game today, but a lot of these guys today, the game is just so much easier for guys who are perimeter players to score now.
Oh, most definitely, definitely. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Also, well, gotta thank the NBA for changing the rules back in the day, which in some ways I gotta say benefited, players like Jordan, and now it benefits, players like a LeBron or a Steph or KD, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Now we gotta get to Scottie Pippen because before, we got on here live, we were talking about Scotty's Pippen deal at the time. Earlier in his career, he signed a lesser deal. Excuse me again, as I kind of understood the situation he was in at the time because I mean, come on, man came from 12 kids. So,
Yeah.
that's a big family to take care of. So I understood that he wanted to, take care of his family, especially take care of his parents. But I was very shocked watching the documentary that at the time he was the 122nd paid player on the team. I mean, the NBA, excuse me. So this dude was a superstar making role player money.
Yeah, the Bulls were notorious for underpaying their players, man. Like, Scotty, I can't remember what year it was, but one year, Scotty, I was looking at salaries, like the years that money doesn't make. One year, Scotty made $800,000, and I'm saying to
Wow.
myself, yeah,
That's a dude, what, the 13, 14, 15 man on the team getting paid that
yeah,
much?
yeah. That's like minimum. That's pretty much. I think that's less than what the minimum is now. I think the
Wow.
minimum is like 900,000 or something. Like, yeah, that's how much he made. And I think the year 97, 98, Scotty made like I think they said 2.8 million, which was sixth on the team. I think fifth or sixth on the team. And Scotty was criminally underpaid, man. Plus, the
So
fact
hold up.
that, go ahead.
So you tell me cats like Luke Longley, Tony Kukoc, Ron Harper, Dennis Rodman, maybe even Steve Kerr were making more than Scotty.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. That is so unbelievable. In my opinion, what Scotty should have done around, because he signed that deal, around 91, 92?
I think it said 91.
Okay. Was it pre-championship or post-championship?
Good question. Uh, I'm assuming it was. I don't know whether it was mid season, but it had to be. It had to be post because I can't. Yeah, if it was 91, it had to be post championship.
Okay, so this is what I would have done. If I was Scottie Pippen's agent at that time, I would tell Scottie, make the Bulls give me, say, a 1 year, 2 year deal, to prove myself, or get a 1 year deal with some incentives because he didn't make the All-Star team in 91. Say I make the All-Star team, get, say, at least second NBA defensive all defensive team, or first or second, then come back to the table next year and then negotiate for the big contract. That's what I would have told Scottie at that time.
Yeah, Scottie, was saying like, which I understand. Like he was concerned about a future injury, and
Right.
if he didn't sign a long-term deal, he'd be screwed. But he left so much money on the table. It's ridiculous, man. Like I agree with you. He should have. I think he should have signed like a 2-year deal. I think he should have signed like a 2-year deal, renegotiated. Not renegotiated. Excuse me. After that deal was over, 93, that's when salaries really started kicking off, like in the mid 90s. Scottie
Right.
would have, yeah, and then especially those years when Mike weren't there and he was holding down the fort. Yeah, his salary, his like I said, his chips would have been so much more valuable when it came to bargaining contracts. Then, like he could have started making money on par with, if not Jordan, the other All Stars, in the NBA, like, at least double digits, like 15 million or something like that back in those days a year. But 2 million, nah.
Yeah, that is very criminal for somebody who's a second star on a championship rock star team. And another thing I can't figure out, now we all know Michael Jordan didn't start getting his money until the second three-peat, but his cushion came from endorsements. I still can't figure out to this day why, we also talked about this before we got on here live, why Scottie didn't get some of those endorsements. I mean, he may not have gotten all the Jordan-like endorsements, but he should at least got some. I mean, come on. This man is I'm gonna compare it to the Beatles. This man is like the Ringo Starr on on the Beatles of the NBA.
Right.
But he doesn't get any type of endorsements. I can't figure out why Scottie did not get, the endorsements that he should have gotten.
It's funny. Like I'm thinking back then, right? And the only endorsement I could think of wasn't it like a weird commercial he did where it was playing like some Thelonious Monk music? It was it for a shoe or something?
Yeah.
You remember that commercial?
I think I do.
Right. Other than that commercial, I don't really remember Scottie getting any endorsements. It's weird because you would have thought during the mid 90s when he was holding down the fort by himself that he would have been getting some type of endorsements, but he never did.
Right.
But you know what hurt Scottie too? Now I think about it. Talking about nothing that hurt Scottie. Remember when he got into an altercation at the airport with the gun?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to think which city was that?
I can't remember what city it was. I think it was the 93-94 season though. There was something that happened where he got into some type of something with a registered handgun or something at the airport.
Yeah, I remember the incident.
Right, there was some controversy around that. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I'm not sure, but that's still kind of minor though. Like I just don't understand why he never got any endorsements. I never could understand it.
I mean, well, shoot, I mean, well, yeah, that is smart. I mean, Charles Barkley threw a man through a doggone window, and he was still popping up on every commercial back then.
Right, right. Yeah,
So, yeah, so y'all can constantly put Charles Barkley on TV for throwing somebody through a window. Y'all could have let the gun thing slide with Scotty. He didn't shoot anybody.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, it wasn't. In hindsight, it was kind of minor, you know what I'm saying? But um, I don't know. All I can think of is maybe some people just didn't think that his personality or whatever was magical, or he just. I don't know exactly what it was with Scottie Pippen.
Or maybe they didn't think he could sell products like Michael Jordan could. I mean, Jordan could sell almost doggone near anything.
Yeah, yeah. He could sell pretty much anything. Um, I don't know, man. It's just Scotty just never was a good pitcher for some reason, or appeared to be a good pitcher. Some players was just like that. I guess I don't know.
You don't think it was that his the way he spoke,
his voice, maybe.
Right.
I was going to say that. Scotty's a great guy, but he kind of has this robotic, deep voice.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that has something to do with it. Hello, this is Scottie Pippen, and I'm here endorsing this Mars candy bar. Mars is one of the best candy bars I've ever had, and when I'm with the Chicago Bulls, I don't know whether that got something to do with it, but
that reminds me of the Eddie Murphy joke with Larry Holmes trying to sell York peppermint patty.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I don't know, man. I don't know exactly what it was, but I'm pretty sure Scotty's agent may have fished, some endorsement ideas or some product placement, suggestions for Scotty, but nothing really ever popped off like that, man. I don't know, but Scotty was just, I don't know, man. In some ways, like I said, I don't blame Scotty for what he did. Like Mike kind of was chastising Scotty for postponing the surgery, basically saying he was doing it as a protest.
Right. Yeah, Michael called Scotty, selfish, and felt that Scotty was being selfish at the time. Instead, putting himself over the team.
Right. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm a Bulls fan, I'm like, yeah, Mike, but it's kind of easy for you to say that, man, because you was making all those millions in endorsement money,
right.
And then you've made $30 million the next 2 years, the last 2 years. So it's like, it is what it is, like, shoot, it could even be said that Mike could have used his influence to get Scotty more money.
That's another thing I was thinking about. Why Mike didn't go to, I mean, come on. Yeah, he had his issues with Krause and maybe Reinsdorf, but he could at least put that to the side for, Scotty. Like, come on, this your running mate that you won, 5 championships with so far. You could have, I think his voice definitely could have at least got the conversation rolling with Scotty on giving him an extension. And another thing, Krause, it's just amazing that it didn't occur in his mind, after that first three-peat to not give Scotty, a pretty nice extension. I mean, he had proven himself, he got on a few NBA all-defensive teams. 9 times out of 10, it was first, perennial all-star. Like, come on. I mean, you ain't got to break. I mean, you ain't got to, like, break the bank, but at least, give him a few more dollars and a few more years on his deal to make him comfortable.
I know one thing. When I was looking at that list, okay, of guys who made more money than Scottie Pippen, the only guy that should have been making more money than him was Michael Jordan.
Right.
And that includes Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman's a great player. He's a Hall of Famer. But he ain't better than Scottie Pippen.
Oh, of
But,
course
but,
not.
but was really a slap in the face, if I'm Scottie Pippen, is seeing Luke Longley make more money than me.
Yeah, that's definitely an insult. Now, Luke Longley, he was a pretty solid player, but come on, man, he was not Scottie Pippen.
No, I mean, Luke, if I'm not mistaken, Luke could get you like 7, 8, 9 points a night, 4, 5 rebounds. You know what I'm saying? Some pretty good interior defense, but nothing all world. You know what I'm saying? But he was solid. He was a solid center. He's one of the better centers the Bulls had in their championship runs. Don't get me wrong, he was solid, but he won't know that he won't know they're a superstar. And for him to make more money, and then people, and it's already kind of established that Scottie resented Tony Kukoc. He kind of resented him anyway. Because the management after Mike left, well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, they acquired his rights in '90, but they didn't actually get Tony until I think '93, '94, which is the year
after the Barcelona Olympics.
Right. That's when they actually acquired Tony Kukoc, and it was like they was trying to groom him to be their next superstar, but Tony never quite got to that level. But Scottie kind of resented Tony for various reasons. I remember there was some games where they relied on Tony to be like the go-to guy in the games, where he was trying to establish himself as the closeout guy after Mike left. So there was already that resentment there anyway. And then you got Tony making more money than Scottie, even though most games in the three-peat, Tony wasn't even a starter. He was a sixth man. So, yeah, I could see that. Scottie was to the point where he wanted out of there.
Definitely. Most definitely. Definitely can't blame Scottie for that. I mean, come on. I would be very insulted if, the sixth man coming off the bench is making more money than I am. And here I am, okay, I say Scottie's a borderline all-star. He's still a perennial all-star, and I, was vital to winning 3 championships within 4 or 5 year period. And then this is how you gonna treat me? Oh, I definitely would be insulted if I was, if I was Scottie. And I think Scottie was really pissed when he found out Jerry was trying to trade him in the offseason, in the season leading up to the 97-98 season.
Yeah, especially when you could argue that if it wasn't for Scottie Pippen's defensive play, who knows if Utah don't tie the game or win it, because it was 88-86 Chicago. Even though Steve Kerr's shot is remembered in that 5th title, everybody remembers Steve Kerr hit the first shot, but Utah still had the ball, right? Yeah, so it was Scottie Pippen's deflection to Tony Kukoc
for the dunk at the buzzer to seal the game. Right,
that sealed the deal. His deflection, and then to find out that they're talking about trading you.
Yeah, coming off of a moment like that. Yeah, that's definitely what really pissed me off. If I just had that one of the iconic moments in Bulls franchise history, winning the 5th championship, stopping Utah from basically forcing a game 7, because who knows? Say if Jazz come up with the steal, who knows? Maybe they hit a shot to tie it, or they hit a shot to win, then bam, you got game 7.
Right. So it's like the disrespect for Scottie Pippen was unreal, man. And then to like hear that they're talking about acquiring Tracy McGrady. Now, of course, Tracy McGrady went on to become a Hall of Famer, but this is a guy that Tracy McGrady at the time was just awful. That was just potential. And why
Right.
would you want to trade at that time? It doesn't make any sense. Why would you trade Scottie Pippen for Tracy McGrady when you're in the midst of a championship run? I don't understand that. It's about trading your main piece or one of your main pieces, excuse me, for a young 18-year-old prospect.
Right.
That sounds like rebuilding.
Oh, of course. Definitely. Like you said, that Jerry Krause's ego got in the way. Jerry Krause, was definitely, looking at that documentary, he wanted to tear that team down after the fifth championship because he wanted to show everybody that he could put together a championship caliber team and win without Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson. Because he wanted to show people that he could he wanted all the credit. You know what?
Yeah.
In some ways, Jerry Krause has similarities to Jerry Jones. Because I mean, look what he did with the Cowboys. He fired Jimmy Johnson, who won them back-to-back Super Bowls, who helped put that team together and brought in a dude like Barry Switzer. Barry Switzer won that third Super Bowl, but let's be real. Nobody gives Barry Switzer credit for that last Super Bowl. That was Jimmy Johnson players. If Jerry Jones would have just shut the hell up, fell back, maybe the Cowboys win 2 more Super Bowls or 3. But Jerry Jones, even now, he still wants all the credit. He wants to prove everybody that he can win the Super Bowl. He wants credit for the Cowboys win another Super Bowl. And that's what Jerry Krause, mindset was.
Yeah. Ego, man. Jerry Jones. From what I heard, man, the last straw for why he fired Jerry Jones, excuse me, something about there was a function that they both were invited to, and a toast of honor was made for Jerry Jones just after they won the last Super Bowl, and everybody at the table stood up and toasted Jerry Jones except for Jimmy Johnson, excuse me. And Jerry saw that, and he found that as being very disrespectful. And he said and supposedly at that moment, that's when he decided to fire Jimmy. Which, I mean, look, man, I mean, it is disrespectful, but what do we always hear people say? You're not supposed to put yourself before the team.
Right.
You're not supposed to let your emotions get in the way of a business decision, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of times that's BS. You know what I'm saying? Like, we see these guys all the time put themselves ahead of a good business decision. And I think, I agree. Jerry Jones let his ego ruin what should have been an even bigger dynasty.
Definitely. You know what? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I was watching the ESPN 30 for 30 on the 85 Chicago Bears. Now, Mike Ditka, I got my disagreements with him, but in that documentary, he said something very true because after, the Bears won the Super Bowl, a lot of those guys were looking for bigger contracts. And he said this, and this is very true. He said, before a team wins the title, it's all about the team. But after they win it, it's all about me. And I admit, that's a very true statement. Like I said, I am not the biggest Mike Ditka fan in the world, but I got to agree with him on that point.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of guys, they, when they're on that journey together, for recognition or what have you, which is that title. You know what I'm saying? It's they're together for a common cause, but it's like after you won that championship, most people tend to want some type of recognition or some type of benefit from it. And
Right.
I think also some of it is people getting. I think family members, friends, getting to these guys' ears, saying,
Agents, managers.
right, managers, agents, they get into these guys' ears. That's fine, man, but why does such and such? Why is A and B making more than you, and why is such and such doing this, and why is this guy getting all these endorsements and you're not? But look how many touchdowns you got last year compared to him and this guy. Yeah, all that plays a part in it.
Right. Oh, most definitely. I mean, the Bulls were, no different because I'm trying to think. What was that ESPN? Top 5 reasons why, they did the episode on why Jerry Krause shouldn't be the blame for the breakup of the Bulls dynasty. And they interviewed David Aldridge from TNT on there, and he was talking to one of the Bulls players. I forget which one, but I know it was after the first three. And
Mhm.
that player said all they're going to remember years from now is Michael Jordan winning championships. Basically saying, the other guys aren't going to get the credit for their, contributions. And I do think some guys on that first three-peat don't get the credit for their contributions, like a Bill Cartwright or a John Paxson or a B.J. Armstrong. I mean, Horace Grant still gets a little bit of the credit, but not enough.
Yeah. Um, I think I think for whatever reason, the latter three-peat team, the contributors get more credit.
Right.
I think it's primarily because of the fact that when Jordan came back, there was some initial doubt, maybe, as to whether he could do it again. And so the narrative was slightly different,
True.
as opposed to like when he first played, like with his first championship. It was like sort of like this narrative. It was Jordan and the Jordanaires. Jordan was doing everything by himself, blah 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 blah.
Right.
You know, I think with the second three-peat, people kind of like focused on that team a little bit more, the parts. And I also think a lot of people just generally fell in love with that '96 team. I think a
True.
lot of people fell in love with that team, were rooting for the Bulls to come back to what was considered their true status in the NBA, so to speak. But I think people just kind of followed that second team more. I don't know, that team was just more romanticized than the first team. The first
Definitely.
team, yeah, the first team is, yeah, you're right though, man. It's like because Horace Grant, when you look at it, when you look at Horace Grant overall game, you can kind of argue that he was a better player, or at least a more skilled player than Dennis Rodman. But
True.
but he's most likely never going to get into the Hall of Fame. There's some truth to that, man. Like
Right.
a lot of those guys are not really celebrated. I think B.J. Armstrong was probably the best real point guard they had. Harper was a
Definitely.
point guard, but Harper was point guard, but he wasn't really like a point guard. BJ don't get all the credit he deserved. Craig Hodges, he's
Uh,
forgotten.
you stole my thunder. I
John
was about to
Paxson,
mention Craig Hodges. I was about
what'd
to
you say
mention
now?
Hodges. I said you stole my thunder. I was about to mention Craig Hodges because
Oh,
what he
oh,
won? What didn't he win the 3-point shooting contest in the All Star game like 3 years in a row?
yeah, I think it was 3 years in a row. Yeah, him and Bird, the only ones that win 3 years in a row.
Yeah, Craig Hodges was definitely deadly, but you know how his own beliefs, off the court is kind of what kind of cost him from being talked about more because he also called out Michael Jordan back then for not being more vocal on social issues.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. He was just not one of those guys. He definitely was not Muhammad Ali when it came to talking about social issues. He claimed he had tunnel vision. For whatever reason, that whatever it was, but he didn't speak out on political matters back then. But then again, not to defend him, but for the most part, almost no athletes really talked about that type of stuff in the 90s. It was just
right,
the 90s was not a very well outside the very early 90s. The 90s wasn't really a conscious time. It's like people kind of were more conservative in certain ways, and it was like almost like a corporate decade. Like people just most of the athletes just trying to make their money, and they didn't really speak up on social issues like talk about it. For the
true,
most part. I mean, you had exceptions, but
definitely, most definitely.
yeah,
Also, now you say the second 3P team was more romanticized. In my opinion, the reason why they're more romanticized is because they kind of had more of a personality, and Dennis Rodman was the leader in the personality department. Okay, all the
that's
wild
true.
stuff he did, especially wearing the wedding dress at his book signing, with the different color hair, you know, with all the multiple tattoos. So I think that's
Yeah,
why more people latch on to that second 3P team because they have more of a personality than the first 3P team. The first 3P team, I would say, was more similar to far as personality, not overall, but in personality, they were more similar to like the Spurs. You know what I'm saying? Now, Michael Jordan was the flashy one, but the rest of them, including Scotty, they were more like the grinders, the worker bee.
right.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's part of it too. Yeah, I definitely remember 96, 97, 98. And I remember this was mentioned in Rodman's 30 for 30. Yeah, you could definitely make an argument that Rodman's popularity for a little period of time rivaled Jordan's a little bit. Like that's how popular he had gotten, at least in America, at least. That's how popular he had gotten for a while. He had dated Madonna for a while. He had that book "Bad as I Want to Be." He had the
Right,
infamous wedding dress book signing he had,
right,
whatever. He did the wrestling thing. I think that last year with the Bulls, he was wrestling in WCW, and
right.
he had these bad movies he was making.
Oh yeah, like double team with John Claude Van Damme.
Right, double team with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Dennis was a very interesting guy, and you know what? Uh, as a Chicago Bulls fan, Dennis was Michael's my favorite player, but Dennis was the one that I used to just like, yeah, because I used to
Right,
his rebounding and the energy and the hustle. Like
right,
Dennis was the hardest working damn player I've ever seen. Like people talk about Russell Westbrook and how hard he plays, and he does play very very hard. But Dennis, when he was amped up, I never seen when he was on his game. I never seen a guy dominate the boards to that extent. Not even not Drummond, not Ben Wallace. Even in his best days, I've never seen a guy totally dominate the boards like Dennis Rodman when he was on. When he was on,
definitely, most definitely, and in a way, he kind of brought some of that. How can I put this? He kind of brought some of that bad boys energy to the bull, to the
Yeah,
Bulls once he got there.
yeah, yeah. A more family friendly version of the Bad Boys. If
Right,
that makes sense. Like, but yeah, you're right. That's what the Bulls was missing when that year that Mike came back. When he played the 17 games in the regular season, but they got ousted in the playoffs by the Magic.
right,
They had a bunch of scorers, a bunch of guys that could, score. Him, Scotty, B.J. Armstrong, but they was missing that toughness, that defensive presence, the interior presence and rebounding, and that's one of the main reasons why they lost. They didn't
right.
have that toughness outside of their backcourt, and Dennis Rodman provided that.
And they
And
definitely didn't have an answer for Shaq,
no,
because
they
Shaq got
had no
everything
answer
he
for him.
wanted in that series.
And then what made that series so painful to Bulls fans is the guy that we looked at as a traitor, Horace Grant, was on the opposing team.
Right.
You know,
He was the main one that basically knocked the Bulls out of the playoffs because he had that big game 6. Because Phil Jackson felt like Shaq wasn't gonna beat him; it was gonna be somebody else, and who knew it was gonna be the guy that helped that kicked off the Dynasty.
yeah, yeah. I remember when they eliminated us in that 6th game, and they hoisted up Horace Grant. Man, oh god, I was so angry. I was
Yeah,
like,
Horace,
man,
yeah, Horace Grant had his Rudy moment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was his moment. You know what I'm saying? But you know, we got our revenge the next year, though.
Right.
Got our revenge the next year.
But if the Bulls would have gotten past the Magic, then they definitely wouldn't have beat Houston in '95. In my opinion,
You said you think they would have or wouldn't have?
I think they wouldn't have.
Oh nah, nah, nah. I've heard. I'm a diehard Bulls fan, and you heard me make the argument for the '99 year, but '95, no, we wouldn't have beaten them. No, I honestly don't know if it would have been more than. I give us maybe one game due to experience, maybe, but I don't see it being a close series in '95.
Right.
No, I think Olajuwon would have destroyed us. Uh, First of all, uh, I think that Clyde Drexler would have still performed pretty well. I just think they had too many guys, man. I think that team had too many weapons for us.
You
Yeah,
had shooters in Kenny Smith, Sam Cassell, Robert Horry.
yeah, yeah. I think they just had too many guys, man. Mario Ellie.
Yeah. Who hit the kiss the death shot against Phoenix.
Yeah, and I just, I don't think we had enough pieces, man.
Definitely. Like I said, the same problems that Shaq gave the Bulls in that series, Olajuwon would have been 2 times worse.
Yeah, yeah. I think that Olajuwon probably would have. I wouldn't be surprised if Olajuwon averaged something like, if he averaged 32 points against the Magic, I could see him averaging at least 36, 37. Seriously, I could see him like just having a monster series against the Bulls, man. And for the Bulls to even have a chance at winning that series, Michael would have to average something like 40 for the series, and Scotty would have to average like 20, 25 himself, which I don't think would have happened. I just don't see it consistently. Them putting up those type of numbers every game. You know what I'm saying? Nah.
Definitely. I definitely agree with you on that. And that 95 finals against the Magic, most of those games were close, especially the first 2 games. Game 1, Even to this day, man, I can't believe how they choked away that game. All Nick Anderson had to do was just hit one or two free throws, game is over. But then he missed four in a row. Bam! Houston came on. Elijah won. Had that tip in overtime, and then game two, Sam Cassell and Kenny Smith just balled out. Like it was nothing.
You know what's crazy about that first game is I actually tuned out of that game. Silly me. I tuned out of that game when it was like when Orlando had like a 20-point lead. Because I just pretty much said, and Orlando just going to win a title this year, man. They're just unstoppable. So, especially at home, because at home that year, Orlando was 39-2. They were so on the road, but at home they were 39-2. They was pretty much unbeatable, and they hadn't lost at home in the playoffs, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And when it was about 20-something, I said, "Yeah, this series over with." So I went to bed because I was in school at the time. I went to bed, got that morning, and I saw like a tail end of a highlight with Elijah on with his hand raised at the tip of the ball up. I said, "What the hell happened?" Right? So I look at it and I found out they came back, tied the game. Kenny Smith went crazy in that game. And then they came back and won the game in overtime. So I was like, "What?" I said, okay, well, all right, yeah, they won, but okay, the Magic still gonna beat them in 6 or something like that. After that, so they're still gonna beat them in 6. When the Magic dropped the second game at home, I said, "Wow, they're choking."
Yeah. Yeah, that's still unbelievable because everybody thought Orlando was definitely going to win that championship that year.
Yeah.
The way that they were balling, especially after beating the Bulls and the Pacers.
And I remember in the first round they destroyed the Boston Celtics. It was one game. One game, I think they won by 47. I think 47 points. They destroyed them. So it's like you said, they beat the Pacers, and I just thought it was just a coronation. It was just a matter of time to win the title. And another thing I remember about this series too is that after that first game, when Nick Anderson missed those 4 free throws, he never recovered from that psychologically. He never was the same player after that.
Not at all.
No, he never was the same. He went from being a guy that could get you 17, 18 points a night. He was a decent free throw shooter. The rest of his career, he was a bad free throw shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that game definitely, put the lid on his career going forward.
Yeah, he admitted it. He said in an interview that it's like that series. He says that series, but I think it was that game. It took the dog out of him. Like he wasn't the same. I remember like he purposely, because you remember Nick used to slash sometimes. He used to be a slasher his first early years of the Magic.
Right.
He strictly just wanted to shoot threes. He did not want to go to the foul line after that. He hated going to the foul line.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Now, everybody constantly have this debate about if Michael Jordan hadn't stepped away for those 2.5 years to play baseball, the Bulls would have won 8 in a row. Do you think the Bulls would have won 8 straight?
This is a tough one, man. We disagree about 99. All right, so that's already been established.
Right.
I don't think if Horace Grant leaves, as he did in real life in 95, I don't think they beat the Rockets. I give the Rockets that one. I do tend to think that the Bulls would have beaten the Rockets in '94, though.
If Horace Grant's still on the team.
Right, if Horace Grant's still on that team. And this is the reason why I feel that.
Oh, wait a minute. Horace Grant was on there in '94. My mistake.
Right. He left in '95.
Right.
Yeah, but he was still on the team in '94. In fact, that was the only year he was an All-Star. I think he averaged like Horace Grant. I think he averaged like 15 points, 11 rebounds. And B.J. Armstrong was an All-Star that year. He averaged like 14 points and 8 assists.
Right.
So the reason why I think that they would have beaten the Rockets that year is because when I look at the Knicks, right, I just look at certain things. When I look at the Knicks that year in that finals, I'm not taking anything away from the Rockets, but it was more like the Knicks lost that finals a little bit more than the Rockets won. You know, like if you remember that series, Patrick Ewing for the most part choked offensively. Some of it was Olajuwon's defense, but a lot of it was Ewing just missing a lot of easy jumpers and missing shots he normally makes. And then John Starks had the worst game of his career at the worst possible time, but they still only lost by like 6 points, right? And I look at that. I look at the fact that the Bulls still went 7 games with the Knicks in the semis. And I look at the fact they won 55 games without Michael Jordan. I tend to think that if they had Mike, they probably won at least 10 more games. So I think they would have had the best record in the NBA. I really think they probably would have won 60-something games that year with Mike. So I think they would have had home court advantage. So theoretically, I see them beating Houston, New York, excuse me. All right, either in the semis or in the conference. And I think they probably could have beaten Houston in the finals that year with Michael Jordan and all those other guys in their primes. But it wouldn't have been easy because Olajuwon is Olajuwon. But I think they could have beat them in 6 or 7. I think they could have 4-peated, possibly. But this is the thing people gotta understand, though. This ain't a video game,
right?
To go that long a stretch with winning titles, it's bound to take a toll on you psychologically and mentally and physically. To have to keep constantly grinding out year after year after year, raising yourself to that level of play, challenging yourself. It takes you get burnt out, which is one of the reasons why Mike retired. You know, it recharges his batteries. And also it's just that over time teams, it just takes a toll on you. The Warriors, we just seen how going to 5 straight championship series, just all of a sudden, these guys started getting these injuries, right?
Right.
The Pistons, the bad boy Pistons, they went to 5 straight conference finals and 3 straight NBA finals. They started having injuries prematurely. The Showtime Lakers, even by the late 80s, Magic with the what was it, the ruptured Achilles? Oh, no. What is it he had?
I think it was the Achilles.
Was it Achilles?
Yeah.
Magic, the Achilles, Byron Scott, with whatever he had. It was just a toll. All those years of going to playoffs and these deep playoff runs and conferences and finals, it takes a toll. I just don't see the Bulls winning 8 straight. I don't see it. I could see them maybe going 4-peat possibly, but that 95 year, I don't see them win the title that year. No.
Definitely. Now, I've told a lot of people this on social media that, you know, you make those long runs every year, you know, because people forget the NBA season basically starting with training camp is at least about a 9-month period grind. Training camp starts in September, and say if you're a contending, championship caliber team like the Bulls, Warriors, Showtime, Lakers, and even the Cavs, when LeBron, Kyrie, and Love were together, you basically going from September all the way to June, basically to at least June. Every year that definitely takes a toll on your body, mentally, physically, because teams are trying to beat you up, like like they did back in the 80s, with the Showtime Lakers, Celtics, Pistons, Jordan. Also, you know, you just can't keep that up consistently. And I know a lot of people just think, the Bulls were, had the NBA on such a lock back then, but I'm like, no, they really did, because at some point, Father Time sets in. I don't care who you are. I don't care how great you are. Like you said with the Showtime Lakers, and they went to what 9 NBA Finals in the '80s,
Right.
but they only won 5. And by the time they won that 5th title in '88, they were basically done. Look at what happened in '89. Matt gets hurt. Byron Scott gets hurt. Yeah, they made the finals in '91, but James Worthy and Byron Scott got hurt in that series against the Bulls. So
right.
And
their play style had to acclimate, and the way they played had to acclimate with their age. It wasn't that same up and down Showtime. It was more of a half court team,
right?
Because they were older,
right? Dunleavy made them more half court team. Since Pat Riley left, went to New York, they definitely had to change their game.
Right. I think Dunleavy was the coach then. I think was it Mike Dunleavy?
He was the coach.
Okay, yeah. Even even with Bill Russell, right? And people look at that, they did win 11 championships in 13 years. But one thing they had in their favor, other than the fact that Bill Russell had a lot of Hall of Famers on his team, they didn't have the same amount of rounds that these guys go through now. And they didn't play as many games in the earlier rounds. Right. So that kind of helped them out. But even those last 2 championship teams, they had to kind of grind those out. Like those last 2 championship teams that the Celtics had with Bill Russell, they were definitely not favored. Like that was just championship heart and experience, just eking those ones out. And so this ain't no video game, man. Like people think you just show up and you just come out and play. Like those wars take a toll, man, physically, mentally.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Most definitely. Like you said with the Warriors, I mean, come on. Steph is what, 30 now, if I'm not mistaken?
Mm-hmm. Yep, 30.
Even though, some of the, cats like the Clays and the Draymond, well, KD's 30 now, even though they were a little bit younger, but I mean, come on. You go to 5 straight NBA finals, that definitely takes its toll on you, mentally and physically. They definitely took their toll on them last year, especially, KD getting hurt, in the first round? And in my opinion, he shouldn't have came back at all for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, I kind of blame the media a little bit for that one, man.
Right.
The media put so much pressure on Kevin Durant to come back and prove that he was a championship level player, a championship level competitor. And I also think, from what I've read, not only did the media do it, I think some of the Golden State Warrior personnel and some of his teammates were kind of pressuring him to come back.
They were.
Yeah, and ultimately, he got injured. He had a much worse injury. You know,
right?
so I kind of can even understand why Durant left because it's like I wasn't a fan of his decision, but at the same time, I'm not Kevin Durant, and ultimately he felt like that was the best decision for him at the time. But he felt like he was never really fully appreciated for his efforts, and
Of
to an
course,
extent, yeah, and to an extent, I kind of understand where he's coming from.
definitely. In my opinion, the Warriors medical staff definitely did not have his best interests at heart.
No,
Like you said, the coaches and his teammates were constantly putting pressure on him because they wanted to three-peat. They wanted to be up there with the Bulls, the 2000s Lakers. You know, so they definitely thought, well, KD would definitely look good. Would definitely look great if he was out there. But no matter what would have happened against Toronto, they still should have had his best interest at heart. And I think that was another factor why he left. And plus, like you said, he wasn't fully embraced by the organization, which in a way, he wasn't going to be embraced like that because that was Steph's team, that was Clay's team, that was Draymond's team.
yeah,
And also, I still can't figure out, at the 2018 parade, Bob Myers and Steve Kerr kind of throws a little side diss at him. Like, come on, this man helped y'all go back to back, and y'all dog him, and y'all do that to him. Because let's keep it real, y'all were, say if Kyrie and Kevin Love, weren't injured in 2015, who knows? Maybe y'all never win the championship, or y'all could be a one-hit wonder if y'all don't get KD.
yeah. Like that's an interesting. Matter of fact, you know what? That's a very interesting point you just brought up. Because without Kyrie Irving, for the most part, and without Kevin Love for the entire series, LeBron was still able to will that team to 6 games.
True.
And at one point they were up 2 games to 1.
Right.
Now, like you said, it stands to reason with both of those guys playing, they probably would have beaten the Warriors. And if they were able to beat the Warriors, how do we know that that next team doesn't have the same mindset and confidence to go out and play to win those 73 games? You know what I'm saying? A lot of it's
Right.
psychological and confidence too.
Definitely.
So, right. So, especially let's say they go to the finals again, and then the history repeats itself to an extent, and the Warriors lose again to the Cavaliers. Maybe that dynasty never kicks off. Maybe they just kind of like just mentally fall apart. Maybe they become sort of like the Utah Jazz. You know, they're a really good team, but they just can't go over the hump.
Right. And I did, and with KD's mindset, he's looking at it like, okay, Draymond, you called me after you ran after you ran crying in the car like red, after the Cavs beat you in your building to have me come play with y'all, but then you turn around and diss me by, calling me the B word, saying that we were doing this without you, and everybody's throwing side digs at me like, what am I here for?
Yeah. Um, man, all I gotta say is this. If anybody's followed my channel on YouTube, you know how I feel about Draymond Green.
Mr. Triple Single.
Yeah. I don't really have a lot of high regard for Draymond Green. And it has a lot to do with not only the fact that uh, his level of play doesn't keep up with his reputation in the media. I put it like that.
Right.
Not only that, but I just see a lot of his actions have contributed to why why Kevin Durant ultimately left. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, he's the main one that recruited Kevin Durant to come join the organization. And then after he helps to lead the team to 2 championships, which Draymond Green's legacy definitely benefited from, now all of a
Right.
sudden, because of the fact that you're trying to look out your future and your contract situation. Now you want to get Kevin Durant off the team. You know what I'm saying? Because you're looking at your future situation all for yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm like, yeah, that rubbed me the wrong way with him, man.
Definitely. Because I always felt like the Warriors should have been trying to allocate that money to bringing KD back instead of trying to give Draymond $100 million. Because and a lot of people, definitely disagree with me on this, but I told people you got a better chance of replacing Draymond than you do KD. Because there are definitely some 3-and-D players out there who can do at least similar to what he does, and some of them have better offensive game than Draymond.
Yeah, man. You could kind of find a guy that could at least replicate most of what Draymond does out there on the court. Because to me, really, I don't see what's so great about him. He's a very when he has. I'll say this about Draymond. When he has Hall of Fame talent around him, he's a great facilitator.
Right.
Okay, I'll give him that. But to me, he's a horrible offensive player. He can't shoot anymore. Yeah, he's horrible. He can't shoot from outside anymore. He to me, he's not really a great rebounder per se. He's decent, but he's not a great rebounder. His defense, which was once really, really good at one point, is starting to become it's slacking off a little bit. So
yeah, definitely could tell that last year against Pascal Siakam.
Right. So it's like he's not the same dude anymore. And it's like, yeah, but with Kevin Durant, you can't get that every draft or every other draft or even every 5 or 6, 7 years. Kevin Durant's one of those once in a generational talent. So it's like,
right.
Yeah, you gotta do everything you can to placate. If I were the general manager, I would have traded Draymond Green personally. I would have traded him.
I agree. Definitely would have made a trade for him. But, I guess they felt like since he's been here, since the beginning of this thing and he was a part, to me, a lot of people constantly say, well, he was part of them winning 3 championships, but not to me, not really. Hell, that first championship, Iguodala was more instrumental than Draymond Green. I mean, Draymond was solid, but he wasn't like the end-all, be-all why they won that first one.
Yeah.
And last 2, he just benefited from playing with 3 future Hall of Famers.
Right. Yeah. I just, to me, from watching Draymond Green, I only have one game in my head where he sticks out. And oddly, it was that game 7 that they lost.
Right.
Remember, I think he had like 35 points. That's like the one great game I've ever seen him play in the playoffs. I mean, right. I'm not saying he hasn't had some decent performances, but for a guy that people keep saying is a future Hall of Famer, he sure don't have a lot of signature moments.
Not at all. And I don't think he's no doggone Hall of Famer. And I don't know why people keep on saying that he is. Yeah, he has 3 championships, but come on, what moments did he have? Hell, Robert Horry, even though he ain't in the Hall of Fame, he has a lot more signature moments than Draymond Green.
Yeah. He had a lot more signature moments. And I remember in that 95 finals, Robert Ory averaged like, and this was a team with a whole bunch of guys on the roster. Robert Ory averaged like 15 points and 10 rebounds in
Wow,
limited
off the
minutes.
bench.
Yeah, 15 points and 10 rebounds. So it's like you said, Robert Ory's stats won't blow you away because he just wasn't that type of guy. He really didn't care about numbers like that. Robert Ory was all about the playoffs. And
Right.
Robert Ory had to be one of the greatest clutch performers I ever seen in my life. That shot that
Oh
he
yeah.
made against the Sacramento Kings is one of the greatest clutch shots in the history of playoffs.
Right.
You know,
My favorite shot by him was against the Pistons in the '05 finals. And he was just and before that shot, he was balling in that game.
right, right. Yeah, man. He just big shot Bob.
Yes,
You
he
know,
is.
yeah. So my thing is, if Draymond gets into the Hall of Fame, Robert Ory need to be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, he better be in the Hall of Fame right behind him, or at least or before he gets in.
Right, right, man. There's just a lot of guys, man. Like to me, I couldn't take the Hall of Fame seriously anymore if Draymond Green is in it, but Kevin Johnson's not in it.
Right.
You know, guys like Kevin Johnson and some other cats like I think Marquise Johnson not in the Hall of Fame. There's just a lot of dudes that are not in the Hall of Fame or Chris Webber for that matter. How could Draymond Green be in the Hall of Fame but Chris Webber's not because he didn't win a championship? I mean,
You're right.
come on, man.
Well, look at Cedric Maxwell. I'm still surprised he ain't in the Hall of Fame. He's got 2 championships and he was a Finals MVP.
Yeah, right now, if I'm not mistaken, Cornbread Maxwell is the only player who's won a Finals MVP who's eligible for the Hall of Fame, but it's not in it. He's the only one.
And that's still a mystery to that's still a huge mystery to me why he has not gotten in yet. I still can't figure it out to this day.
I've tried to read about it. I've read that, what I suspect is kind of true with him, like some other guys is not in the Hall. He wasn't the most easy guy to get along with sometimes. But that should have no bearing on whether or not a guy should be in the Hall of Fame, whether he's likable or not. It should have nothing to do with it. It should be about a guy's production and what he's done, what he did. And Cedric Maxwell, man, he easily could get you on those Celtic teams 18 points and 10 rebounds a game. Say a solid low post scorer. I don't understand why he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I still can't figure it out either. Now with the Bulls dynasty, everybody puts that in the top 5 or top 5 easily. To me, since we speak about the Warriors, for some reason, I don't think the Warriors dynasty is going to be ranked too high for some reason. Do you get that feeling when people talk about dynasty that the Warriors dynasty is not going to be like ranked high?
Do you mean by and do you mean like in the long run or right now?
More like it maybe in the both.
Well, to me, when you're talking about millennials, and I'm not trying to be funny, but when you talk about millennials, I would say for right now, they probably hold this Warrior team like in a high regard because there's so much emphasis right now on shooting threes, offense, stuff like that. But in the long run, because I kind of suspect, unless they're able to acquire a big name guy like Giannis, which I don't think is going to happen, but you never know.
I hope it don't happen.
I hope not. But I kind of suspect that Curry and Clay, these injuries that they're suffering from, might be a sign of a harbinger of things that might unfortunately be on the road for them. Like what we talk about with all these guys that have these long roads. Because Curry, well, anyway, let me get to the point you're talking about. I don't, I don't think that this Warrior team is going to be ranked up there with the all-time greats, and as far as great teams, and I think what's going to hurt them is that 73 win team that win championship.
Right.
That hurts them. Okay, that hurts them. Um, the fact that they lost to the Raptors just now. I mean, you could blame injuries, whatever, but that hurts them. Um, I don't know, man. I just don't see this Warriors team as being as one of the all-time great championship teams or dynasties. I don't really see it.
Definitely agree. And I definitely agree that that 73-9 season hurts them, but not just them losing the finals, but the way they lost. Like, okay, the Patriots who went 16-0, they didn't get blown out by the Giants. I mean, the Giants came back on them and won that Super Bowl because the Giants, let's keep it real, had a better defense than what the Patriots did. But the Warriors lost that finals in historic fashion. You know, being up 3-1. Now a lot of Warrior fans and some basketball fans still feel Draymond's suspension played in the fact that they lost that series. But I disagree because I mean, come on, you still had 2 or 3 more chances to win that series, and they just didn't win. Now, if you want to say Bogut injury played more of a factor, then okay, but the Warriors lost that series in a historic way.
I tend to blame I tend to blame Bogus injury way more than the Draymond game because I just don't think Draymond is. Yeah, Draymond had that 35-point game, man, but I don't see Draymond as one of those series changing players, man. I just
Right.
don't have much regard for his game, but I do think Bogut going down hurt the Warriors in the long run. The last couple of games, but injuries are part of the game. The year before that, LeBron didn't have 2 of his teammates, so that was just karma. If anything, karma. So it's like even the playing field. One year he didn't have his guy, both guys actually, and then next year y'all didn't have one of y'all key guys. But the Warriors, to me, um, they were. I mean, they're a great team, but it could also be said too about them that they kind of benefited a little bit from some easier playoff matchups.
True.
You know what I'm saying? Like some of the teams they played in the playoffs, they weren't like exactly the Bulls and Knicks or Lakers and whatever or Celtics, Pistons. It was. I remember one year they played like injury depleted a Clippers team where they didn't have either Paul or Griffin before that team got broken up. And
Right.
they played like a kind of a hurt Portland team, and
Definitely.
like they. I don't know, man. The Western Conference has always usually been competitive, but there's been some years where they had some lucky breaks as far as matchups concerned.
Most
So
definitely.
right, so it's like I don't know. I don't put the Warriors up there with the all time great championship teams. That's just me.
Yeah, it seems like the only tough tests they faced against were OKC and Houston because even if that the first championship run 2015, just about everybody they played in the playoffs was injured. The Pelicans missed their point guard. Memphis, missed 2 of their guards. Matter of fact, they missed one of their best perimeter defender. And then Houston missed their point guard.
Yeah, yeah, and what one guy, not to change the subject, man, but one guy on that team who I have mixed feelings about as far as his legacy is Steph Curry.
Right,
Like on the one hand, I do think Steph Curry is definitely at this point a top five all time point guard. But then on the other hand, it does bother me that Curry doesn't have a Finals MVP, and it bothers me that it's hard to define him because you know he can be a lot of times in the top stage like the finals. He's had a lot of underwhelming performances.
right,
For a guy that's supposedly the greatest shooter of all time, he doesn't really have a lot of signature made great shots in the playoffs or in the finals, especially. I just can think of so many misses. And it's not like he's played bad. He's played very well a lot of times or good, but he hasn't had those dominant performances that you normally see from a top five all time point guard. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
yeah,
Definitely. Like now a lot of people, because I got to debates with people over this. I said in 2015, he was not consistent in that series. He didn't really get hot until late in game three in the last three games.
right.
He scored 25 points, 25 per game in that series, but he was not consistent. I mean, come on, the first three games, he was getting beat up by Matthew Dellavedova, and Dellavedova did a pretty solid job on him for the most part. But then, you know, he ended up hydrated after what was it, game three, and he wasn't the same after that series. So that's what led Steph to go off. And definitely 2016 in the finals, he definitely had a bad, for the most part, had some bad games, especially game seven, having key turnovers. And plus, he only scored, 17 points?
Yeah. And he couldn't remember he infamously couldn't get past the defensive perimeter phenomena that's Kevin Love.
That's true.
Yeah, he couldn't get past Kevin Love.
Like, you get shut down by Kevin Love in the final minutes of a final game.
Right. I'm like, come on, so Curry's a great player, man, but it's just hard for me. I don't know. It's just hard for me to put him over some guys, man. But because of the fact that he has 2 Finals MVPs and 3 championships, like I feel obligated to put him over certain point guards.
No Finals MVPs.
Huh?
Yeah, Steph has no Finals MVPs.
Yeah, no Finals MVPs, and that's odd for a guy that's supposed to be a point guard that's like possibly a top 20 all time player in some people's eyes. But but no Finals MVPs. Have you been to the Finals 5 times?
Right. He was trying to get those Finals MVPs the last 2, but he got outshined by Kevin Durant.
Right. And if the Warriors were to win this last time, he might have eked it out. He might have gotten it, probably, right. But they lost because one thing about Steph Curry that hurts him is his game is a little bit more limited than other players, and the boxing one that they displayed on him showed that. It was
definitely
right outside of that 47-point game he had. It worked. They were able to neutralize him.
Definitely. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to ask you that. Well, want to get a couple of points. Well, get your take on a couple more things before we wrap up. Now, back to the Bulls. Now, You're not from, you're not living, you don't live in Chicago, you're not a Chicago native, but you know, what was that whole run like for you at that time, during the 90s?
Man, um, I started really watching the Bulls a little bit late from a historical standpoint. Like I started watching them in 1990, like as they were coming of age, and I was watching them. Uh, I started watching them the year that they were eliminated against the Detroit Pistons, and I was just so amazed at that team. Like the artistry of Michael Jordan, how dominant he was, and following him from 90 all the way through, it was just the only way I can describe is just magical, man. Like I always look forward to watching them play on either WGN or on NBC when they took over in 1991.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It was always just amazing to watch that team. And once they became a championship caliber team, the thing about it was you wondered could they do it again? Can they repeat as champions? And as a Richmonder watching the Bulls, saying we don't really have a sports team other than technically the Redskins. But
Right.
yeah, as far as NBA, we don't have a team. I mean, you could argue maybe we should be Bullets fans, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? Nobody really follows the Bullets or Wizards now here, but um, at that time, most people who were NBA fans, I think most of them were Laker fans, Pistons fans, Sixers fans, because some people like Charles Barkley. So, what I'm saying? I just like watching the Bulls, man. You know what I'm saying? I just saw something with that team that I think this team could be great. You had Michael Jordan, you had Scottie Pippen. You know what I'm saying? I liked watching a team work as a unit, and the Bulls did that. And I love watching them uh, just demoralize a team defensively. And when you watch the Bulls, that's when you grew an appreciation for chemistry, teamwork, and defense, like which is something that's sorely missing from NBA today. To watch that team work as a unit defensively, to me, was better, to me at least, better than watching Clay and Steph and all these guys shoot threes. I love to watch a team uh, just come back or destroy a team with their defense. And the Bulls just, epitomize that, and they represented Chicago very well. A blue collar city, hard working city, appreciate people that work hard to get theirs. And they represented the city well, you know what I'm saying? And what another thing that made me root for Mike and the Bulls more was all the doubters when he came back, when they lost. Everybody was like, the dynasty is over. This is a new league. This is a better league. It's Shaq and Penny and Grant Hill and Jason Kidd. Mike was the old NBA, but this is a new gang of guys. And most of us knew that wasn't the truth, man. We knew that the guy was just rusty. He needed to get back into the swing of things. And you know what I'm saying? But we never expected what happened in 96, you know what I'm saying? So the last three-peat was just special. And also, the thing about it is I made a mental note in my mind to appreciate it more because I knew that they were closer to the end of their journey than the beginning. So I made a mental note to enjoy every moment of the last three-peat because I knew it was going to be over soon. So, I just enjoyed it. It was, to me, the greatest basketball dynasty in the modern times, in my opinion. No knock on Bill Russell. I'm not trying to knock on them, but you know what I'm saying? To me, for the Bulls to do what they did in a 30 team league is just impressive. To win 6 championships, when the main guy retired for 2 years and you still win 6 championships in a decade, I don't know if that's going to be repeated anytime soon.
Okay, definitely. Now, what are some of your favorite NBA Finals moments or playoff moments with the Bulls?
Oh man, you talking about during the championship era?
Yeah.
Um, man, um, one thing that I remember is the little things that showed you what separated Mike from other stars and other superstars. Now, most people tell you about the 50-point games or the shot against Russell and all that stuff. I remember there was a game that was playing in Miami Heat, right, in the '97 conference semis, and I think it was Game 4. I think it was Game 4 of that series, next to the last game, and Mike could not buy a bucket. It was probably the worst. It was probably one of the worst or one of the two worst shooting games he ever had in his life. And he started off the game 0 for 14. Okay. Couldn't make a shot, missing chippers, missing like 10 footers, missing, just any shot that he normally would make and stuff. And most players would have just sort of mentally packed it in. Even if it was a playoff game, they would have been hesitant to shoot the ball. It would have ruined their confidence. Mike come out in the second half and he scores like 30 points in the second half, right? And even though they lost that game, you could see right then and there what separates him from most players is that he'll never quit. He's never going to quit. He doesn't care if he misses 30 shots in a row because he believes he's going to make the next 30 shots in a row. But as far as like, as far as like, just as far as like just performances that just like make my jaw drop, whatever. My favorite Bulls performance would probably be, I would say, as a team, Game 1 of the Orlando Magic series when they got the revenge when they beat them by 40. Because I love seeing the Bulls play as a unit, as like just unbelievable basketball. Like, when everybody got to going, when they got it going offensively, defensively, it was just a beautiful thing to watch, man. I think they beat Orlando by like 40 points. You know what I'm saying? But those games when the Bulls had it going were phenomenal. Like in the finals when they beat Utah by 40 some points. I think they held Utah to like 54 points, which was like a record that I think still stands. It's performances like that stand out for me more so than those individual 50-point, 40-point games from Jordan and stuff like that. I like seeing the team play as a dominant unit as a whole. Those are games that stand out to me watching the Bulls play.
Okay. Well, a couple of my finals moments. Actually, a lot. Well, to me, one of them is the '93 finals in Game 6. A lot. I mean, of course, a lot of people remember Jordan doing his thing in the finals,
Right.
and he scored what 8 point, to bring the Bulls back. But it wasn't Michael Jordan who turned the lights out on the Suns. It was John Paxson. And space, and every time I watch that game, I always like how that play was ran. How they just passed the ball and how Paxson just basically walked into that shot and just hit it. Like he knew it was going in.
Right.
And also,
Right.
I like the Marv Albert call too.
What's funny about that shot with John Paxson is, if I'm not mistaken, if you look at the highlight, I think it's B.J. Armstrong on the sidelines. If you look at John Paxson when he shoots it, B.J. Armstrong immediately falls back on his back and puts his fist in the air because he knew it was good from the moment when John Paxson shot it.
Right.
I think it was B.J. Armstrong, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, like those types of moments. Yeah, like when they're working as a team, man, it's phenomenal. I mean, well, technically, I guess the championship winning shots would be my favorite moments. But from watching the team and admiring them, I love when they were just playing as a unit. But you know, I don't know, man. It's just as a team, man. I just never. The closest I've seen to a team playing like that as a unit to me is like the Detroit Pistons in the mid 2000s.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of like what I'm talking about. Even though Mike scored a lot of points, it's like there was a different team than the earlier Bulls teams when Mike kind of did everything and he got all the praise, but he had the teammates, but the championship years, Mike still scored his points, but it was within the system. It wasn't forced. You know what I'm saying? That's why it irritates me when a lot of people say that Jordan was a ball hog, he was a selfish guy, and it wasn't true. I mean, if it was true, it maybe in the 80s, but in the 90s, Mike was a consummate team player. He played within the system. He didn't really go out and force shots. Everything was by design when it came to the championship Bulls.
Definitely. And now another favorite game of mine, just as a whole, was the 98 finals in game 6. Now, everybody remembers Jordan hitting the shot over Russell, but just that whole game, man, it had you on the edge of your seat, had you asking questions. Will the Bulls win their sixth championship, or will they go to game 7 for the first time in the finals in the Jordan era? It was just great to see both teams going back and forth. Two great teams.
Yeah, I remember when when John Stockton hit that go-ahead 3 to put him up 86-83. I can't remember how much time was left, but it was less than a minute to go.
Right.
It's the first time I thought to myself, damn, we probably gonna have to play a game 7.
And I don't think if that would have went to game 7, in my opinion, I don't know if the Bulls would have won that game.
I don't think they would have either. I was nervous because, like you were saying, I could sense that the Bulls, Mike especially, were just about done. Like they were pretty much physically exhausted, like just done. And when John Stockton hit that 3, I said, "Shit, damn." I feel like, damn, they got the momentum on their side. They might win this damn thing. We might lose. But then Mike came back and he made. I remember he made a layup inside. And then I think they made it 86, 85 or something like that.
Right.
And then he stole the ball. He stole the ball
from Scotty, double team Malone and
right.
Steele.
Right. Jordan came from behind and knocked it from behind and stole the ball. So at that moment, I was like, okay, this is it. So when he shot it, I remember when Mike shot it, I knew it was good. The way he released it, everything. Because before that, in hindsight now, Phil had noticed that Mike had missed like his last 3 or 4 jumpers. So he told Mike, you need to follow through more on your jumper. So that's why he kind of held out that pose like that. And when he shot it, I kind of knew it was good. And when it went in, I didn't, what I'm saying, say to myself, "Oh, we won the championship," because there's still a little time left, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But I said to myself, "Man, I think we got it. I think we got it. I think we got it." And when they didn't, I think was it Ron Harper deflected Stockton's 3-point attempt? I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he did that, I was like, ecstatic. You know what I'm saying? Because that was, first of all, it was end of the dynasty, and then that was one hell of a performance. You know what I'm saying? Michael
Right.
Jordan showed who he was in the final moments of that game, on offense and defense. His fingerprints was all over that game, you know what I'm saying? Essentially by himself, because Scottie Pippen was pretty much just a decoy because his back was messed up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, this documentary also showed, Jordan at some of his worst moments, especially when the Bulls got off to that bad start on the road, where some of the mediocre or the worst teams in the NBA were just beating them. But I did a video on how you would feel that people were perceiving with this documentary. I just felt that it would just show Jordan being human. And some way, and in my opinion, if Jordan were playing today in the era of social media and they showed, the stuff that he was saying to teammates and that joke he made to Jerry Krause, Jordan would be dragged on social media.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he would. And there's a lot of stuff that he said, in the past that I think in today's atmosphere, it wouldn't be looked at very well. I'm not going to repeat what he said. This was later on. This is not the Bulls years, but it was something that he said to Kwame Brown.
I mean, it's okay. You can if you want to.
Well,
like I said, say what you feel.
Okay. Well, I remember like when Jordan was with the Washington Wizards, he called Kwame Brown a flaming faggot.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was playing soft. Now, this was 2002. Now, imagine that got out today.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah, the LGBT community would be all over Jordan.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So I can just see a lot of the stuff that he said back then. It would be taken out of context, and it would be emphasized more. It would be put out there, and that aura that he has, it would just be totally ruined. Like, because he'll be looked at as they would make him out to be a sexist or homophobic or
fat shaming.
Right. Just shaming him, and or he's fat shaming Jerry Krause and all this silliness, man. Just silliness.
Oh, most definitely. I said to myself, Jordan wouldn't be able to play today in this era of social media because he'd be dragged too hard. And also, he would definitely be dragged for punching Steve Kerr in the face.
Oh, yeah. They would call him a thug, a savage, and
right.
What type of player punches his own teammates.
And plus, Steve Kerr is and I'm just saying this for criticism purposes, he's the all-American white boy.
Right. Right. And plus, today, players don't know how to keep things in the locker room anymore. Like, you got these guys now that always want to silently broadcast stuff that's in the locker room to social media, or they have people that leak stuff to, or they secretly leak stuff into people that deal with these social media sites. And yeah, Jordan really today, I don't know if he would be looked at in the same way, man, at all. Like he'll just be looked at as a psycho.
Right. And also not just him with this whole Bulls team, man. This Bulls team would be constantly trending all over social media now. Like I remember saying this in matter of fact, one of the videos I did pertaining to this documentary a few months ago. I said, with all the drama that Scotty was going through with Jerry Krause, Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause having their issue, it would be on social media within 5 seconds. Right. Now if they were playing in this era, if this team was, doing that thing in this era.
Yeah.
And also,
so much.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I would say, yeah, it's so much juicy information that's with this team. And, today stuff gets leaked so much, so easily. And, people feel like they have a right to know stuff now. Yeah, I can see all this stuff like just being fodder for the talking heads and, even us content creators and
Right.
and just these large social media websites in general. It could be, and also it's another thing too. That could be a potential distraction for the Bulls in today's era. It'll be another thing for the Bulls to have to worry about is reading all this stuff on social media and and back then you didn't really have a whole bunch of talking heads talking about what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. You didn't have Undisputed or First Take back then, or all these other
Right.
guys, Colin Cowherd, and you had radio shows, but they weren't really, all of them weren't really in the know about some of the intimate stuff as people are
Right.
now. So it's like it's a different world, man. I think Michael Jordan would be a very angry person if he was playing right now, man. I think he'd be like how he was in the '93 year with the gambling thing, where he only talked to one guy. I think
Yeah.
he'll be something like that, man. I think he would really be irritated at social media right now if he was playing it there.
Oh, definitely. He definitely would be very irritated in the social media area. Matter of fact, I don't think he would talk to a lot of media today because they would definitely drag. I mean, come on. The man doesn't even really talk to Sports Illustrated no more because they was, and rightly so, they called him out because he was playing crappy in baseball.
Right, and he had a long-standing reputation, a relationship, excuse me, with Sports Illustrated. But when they put that what was it? The cover that said, I think it said, "Just bag it."
Bag it, Mike.
Yeah, just bag it or something like that. Bag it, Mike. It's like that was it. He stopped talking to him. So it's like, yeah, with the way he is, yeah, he would definitely not communicate with these guys, man. You know what I'm saying?
I say the only person he can communicate with is Skip Bayless.
Skip Bayless would be to Mike what Nick Wright is to LeBron today.
Right.
Like LeBron fans would hate Skip Bayless guts, man. I mean, they hate him even more so today. Yeah, it'll be him. He might talk to Craig Sager because they had a good relationship with Craig Sager. Well,
Ahmad Rashad.
Yeah, and Ahmad Rashad. If they were in the mix today, but that's about it, man. That's pretty much all he'll talk to. Anybody that he thinks, other than anybody that he knows is safe and will treat him fairly in his mind. Other than that, he's not going to talk to anybody else.
Right, especially the ones who've been critical of him.
Right. Because I remember, like, with the gambling thing, he only talked to Ahmad Rashad for a while. Like, he had pretty much just blacklisted everybody else except for Ahmad Rashad. So If he reacted like that to the gambling thing today, all these weird conspiracy theories out there now
Right.
about certain elements of his life. Yeah, I could see him like not talking to people and stuff. I could really also see something else too. I could see him hating Stephen A. Smith.
Definitely. Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
He would
yeah,
definitely hate Stephen A. today.
yeah, yeah. Because I
I
think
can
Stephen A.
imagine.
would go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say because I don't think Stephen A. would be as rough, as how can I say this? Because Jordan would be an active player, he wouldn't put Jordan on that pedestal. So if Jordan had a bad night or whatever, he'd be real critical of Mike. And I could see Mike kind of like stepping to him and just cutting him down to size with something. You know what I'm saying? Just a comment, about him. I can just
Right.
see them not getting along with each other at all.
Oh, most definitely. Definitely. Now, okay, I need to take on one more thing. In your opinion, who do you blame for the breakup of the Bulls dynasty? Is it Jerry Krause? Is it Jerry Reinsdorf? Mike, Scotty, Phil Jackson, or is it just all of them? Are all of them at fault?
Um, I mean, I guess the popular opinion is to say the popular choice is to say Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf. Um, I blame them more than any other person, but I will say this: I don't think that Phil Jackson is totally innocent in this situation himself.
Right.
Um, I do believe that Phil Jackson, from just reading about the relationship between the two, Phil could have done a little bit more to uh, openly give Jerry Krause more credit. If he knew that Jerry Krause was the type of guy that needed a lot of like pats on the back or whatever, he should have worked on first of all trying to mend his relationship with Jerry Krause. It was a process that could have taken some time and effort, but their relationship definitely declined over the decade of 1990s. Their relationship once was really good. Like I said, he was the one that brought him in, but it diminished. So some of it falls on Phil Jackson. I wouldn't be surprised if Phil did some petty stuff too, some really petty stuff to get under Jerry Krause's skin. But that's pretty much it. I blame the management more. I blame Phil a little bit in the process. With Jordan, Jordan could have done a little less rousing of Jerry Krause. You know what I'm saying? Jerry Krause kind of felt disrespected. I remember reading something about it got to the point. Now, I might be misremembering this, but I thought I remember it got so bad that Jerry Krause suggested that the Bulls trade Jordan, and Reinsdorf pretty much like kind of looked at him like with the nigga please face. You know, like I think it got that bad because I think Jordan had ridiculed him like one of those bus trip situations,
Right.
road trip, like yeah. So I think it had got that bad one time. The Krause was like literally in tears from being ridiculed because he was like they said in the documentary he's the little fat boy that never got over it, and I think he like demanded that they considered trading Jordan, and Reinsdorf was like, absolutely fucking not. And that's when, maybe I don't know what transpired after that, but Reinsdorf, it seemed like he always sort of, being an owner, he kind of stuck with management. Management tends to stick with each other for the most part.
Right.
So yeah, what I'm saying. So um, that whole situation, everybody was at fault a little bit. Even with the documentary, Pippen shouldn't have got to the point where he was saying whatever he was saying to others. It shouldn't have got that bad.
All right, I agree. In my opinion, he shouldn't have did it publicly to Jerry Krause. They should have just met up with each other behind closed doors and ironed out the issues of a new contract.
Yeah, yeah, because that contract is a disgrace, man. Like, I mean, to be the 122nd highest paid player in the NBA in a league that had what, maybe, how many players was the league? 300 something, 400 maybe.
Yeah.
So you talk about like a middling contract, like a role player type contract for a guy that was considered an all-star, if not a borderline superstar.
Right.
It's a disgrace.
Very disgraceful. For me, I say there was enough blame to go around with the breakup. It definitely starts at the top with Jerry Reinsdorf and Jerry Krause. With Reinsdorf, he saw that it was starting to get bad between Jerry Krause, Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, and Scottie Pippen. He should have intervened. Like I said, I know, he's not a meddling owner, but sometimes when there's an issue, you gotta step in as the boss at some point when it's starting to just get out of hand, to make sure that the relationship, that the working relationship between the parties involved doesn't get worse or just turn straight toxic. So I think Reinsdorf should have definitely got a hold on the issues between Krause and Phil Jackson, and Krause and Jordan and Pippen. So that way they could have maintained a better working relationship, so they could keep the dynasty rolling more longer than they could have. Also, Jerry Krause, I give the man his due. I mean, come on. That's rare for any GM to build a team to win 6 championships in almost a decade. But he wanted way too much credit. He wanted to be more about him when it really wasn't. Because like you said, GMs very seldom get any credit. So if he would have just got out the way and just stuck to, building the team, getting the pieces to surround Michael and Scottie, guess what? His work would have spoke for him. He didn't have to, be all, out there in the press, trying to seek credit, trying to get pats on the back from everybody, being like, look at me, because his work would have spoke for itself. Now with Michael Jordan, he definitely shouldn't have been so hard on Jerry Krause. I mean, come on. The man did give you the pieces to help you win 6 championships now. And also, he could have gave Jerry Krause some credit every now and then in the press, even if he did have his issues with him. And Scottie Pippen, he shouldn't have berated Jerry Krause like that publicly in front of the team. They should have just met with each other behind closed doors and just ironed out the issues. And who knows, maybe they could have worked out a new contract, or at least they would have cleared the air with each other.
Right. When you mentioned Jordan and Krause, it reminded me of another situation. When Jordan had his Hall of Fame speech, Jerry Krause declined to attend. And Jordan brought that up. He said something about I see Jerry Krause, didn't show up. I think he said something like, "Well, I didn't invite him anyway," so something like that. It just I just kind of saw that as unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like but it just goes to show you like how fractured their relationship was. And it's and at the end of the day, the group that was the most hardest hit by that all that noise and all of that distraction, all of that turmoil were Bulls fans
Right.
because we were ultimately, shortchanged at least one season because, like I said, it was a domino effect. Michael Jordan didn't want to retire that year. His hand was forced. He didn't want to be part of a rebuilding process. Phil Jackson didn't want to leave.
Right.
So it was just a domino effect, man. But to your point though, maybe Phil Jackson should have helped to cultivate the relationship with Jerry Krause more so it wasn't that bad. Jerry Reinsdorf should have stepped in a lot earlier and had some type of meeting between those two to try to salvage their relationship. Scottie Pippen, Krause should have, and Reinsdorf should have met to try to, I don't know, give Scottie maybe some incentives in his contract or I don't know, just renegotiated something. They should have did something, man, because it was just a whole bunch of things all over the place that contributed to that team breaking up.
Right. In my opinion, all those issues between, management, coaching, and players was like it's like all of them were just under a big powder keg that took, took a long time to just explode. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah,
all the championships and all the winning, suppressed that. But I say after that, at least after that fourth or fifth championship, it just boom exploded,
yeah,
and that's when you just started, hearing about all the issues that everybody had with each other.
yeah. And by that time, it was like, the winning wasn't covering that stuff up anymore.
Right.
The winning wasn't the remedy anymore. And some of those relationships were unsalvageable. Like, um, to me, the most tragic aspect of it, and I hate to go to it again, is the deterioration of the relationship between Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson. It's sad
Definitely.
because I think at some level, Phil did show a little lack of appreciation because Jerry Krause was the one that created that opportunity for Phil Jackson.
Right.
Um, you know, you could make an argument if it wasn't for Jerry Krause, Phil Jackson may have gone down in history as an insignificant coach in coaching in the CBA back then when they had the CBA. I think he was a
Right.
coach in the CBA.
Yeah, he
So
was.
yeah, so it's like he would have went down as some insignificant coach in the CBA, and he helped create the opportunity for Phil Jackson. And I do think that Phil, could have handled things better, than ultimately than he did. And then Jerry Krause put him in a position to succeed Doug Collins as head coach. So you're in a golden opportunity to coach the game's greatest player on a rising up and coming team. And yeah, the media tends to look at the players and the coach, I just think that Phil probably did some things because my memory's a little faulty about some stuff, but I know Phil did some things that aggravated uh, Krause. I just can't remember some of the stuff. There was some things that he did that aggravated in the press that aggravated Jerry Krause. He knew he was doing it. So it's like, in my opinion, egos got in the way.
Right,
Egos all across the board. Phil's ego got in the way. Jerry Krause's ego got in the way. Reinsdorf's ego to an extent got in the way. Michael Jordan's ego got in the way. Scottie Pippen's ego, I guess you could say, got in the way. But in his situation, it's more understandable, though, out of
right,
everybody. Even though he still shouldn't have taken it to the point where he public, like, in front of other players, berated their manager, the general manager, Krause.
right.
And then
Yep.
another guy we're not mentioning, because they haven't gone there yet. I guess maybe we shouldn't allude to it too much. When we talk about it next time, so the next episode, Dennis Rodman, because he was screwing up this season too, if remember serving correctly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. But Rodman was more. I mean, yeah, he definitely was screwing up the season, but I don't know. I don't think he had much of an issue with Krause like Phil, Mike, and Scotty had.
No, it was more with him. It was more like he wasn't as connected with the team
Yeah.
as he had in years past, because he was starting to do more like off the court stuff, like the
Right.
movies and wrestling
Right.
and stuff like that. He was starting to become not as connected with the players. And I also remember he was doing stuff like, I remember like in the playoffs, it was like games where he was arriving late to practice because he had been out gambling all night.
Right. Party.
Yeah, I remember like that. He was partying all out, partying, and he had communicate with his coaches. They couldn't get in contact with him. It was stuff like that. So it's like the team was just kind of like, in hindsight, it was like they was kind of running their course, man. So it's like, you might have a point, man. Maybe things happen for a reason. Maybe it was just meant for that team to break up that year. Because
Right.
if they had stayed together, okay, Scottie Pippen's still underpaid. Okay, maybe. Or maybe they give Scotty a good deal. Okay, so let's say Scotty stays. Dennis Rodman, let's say he stays. Okay, let's say Phil stays one more year. Let's say Michael Jordan stays. Let's say for the most part, most of the guys stay for some reason, right? Most of the guys stay. But one thing I forgot about going into that season, you still had the lockout that happened. Okay. So the lockout happens. And then remember, Mike hurt his finger.
True.
So Mike had to have surgery. So if that's the case, I don't think Mike plays that year.
Right.
So maybe things just happen for a reason. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe it was just meant to go down the way it did. You know what I'm saying? And it just added to the Bulls' mystique, because had they lost in the finals, or even dare I say the playoffs before the finals, the Bulls wouldn't be looked at the same way.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, Too Raw for TV, man. Thanks for joining me on here tonight.
No problem, man.
Definitely enjoyed it. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to his channel. This man gives some of the best basketball content as well as other things on his channel. Y'all got to check him out. I thank all of y'all for joining me. I'm going to be here next Sunday doing the recap for parts 3 and 4 of The Last Stand. So till then, y'all have a good one. Love y'all to life. We out. Y'all stay safe, stay healthy. Too Raw, thanks for joining me once again, man.
Thank you, man. Thanks for all you guys for listening.
All right. See y'all later.
All right.